Welcome, good morning everyone. It's great to be here with you today. At the end of a very cold week, I hope you're all warm and safe and keeping well. Let's start by praying together. I've recently discovered this lovely collection, Daily Prayer with the Corrymeela community. And in it, Padraig O'Tuma says this: prayer is a small fire lit to keep cold hands warm. Prayer is a practice that flourishes both with faith and doubt. Prayer is asking and prayer is sitting. Prayer is the breath. Prayer is not an answer always, because not all questions can be answered. Prayer can be a rhythm that helps us make sense in times of senselessness, not offering solutions, but speaking to and from the mystery of humanity. Prayer helping us to make sense in times of senselessness sounds just like what we need at the moment. Let's follow their morning prayer. If you'd like to, join in with the words in bold. We begin our day alone, honouring this life with all its potentials and possibilities. We begin our day with trust, knowing we are created for loving encounter. We begin our day with hope, knowing the day can hold love, kindness, forgiveness, and justice. We recall our day yesterday. May we learn, may we love, may we live on. We make room for the unexpected. May we find wisdom and life in the unexpected. Help us to embrace possibility, respond graciously to disappointment, and hold tenderly to those we encounter. Help us be fully present to the day. We pray for all whose day will be difficult. May we support, may we listen, may we change. We resolve to live life in its fullness. We will welcome the people who will be part of this day. We will greet God in ordinary and hidden moments. We will live the life we are living. May we find the wisdom we need. God be with us. May we hear the needs of those we meet. God be with us. May we love the life that we are given. God be with us. Last week we started our new series. We've called it Nevertheless, She Persisted, a phrase that became an internet meme after it was used against US Senator Warren when she refused to be silenced in a debate. The phrase came to stand as a motto for women who are determined to break barriers despite others' attempts to silence or ignore them. Although many of us are less familiar with them, women's stories are there throughout the Bible. Over the coming weeks, we'll be celebrating those stories and using them for good. Later on today, Rebekah will talk to us about a group of women whose bold, loving, collective action changed the course of history, resisting injustice. Before that, we'll hear from Dave and Nath. We're celebrating LGBT+ History Month throughout February, and they're going to tell us a little more about it.
Hi Dave, thanks for spending this time with us. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and a bit about how you ended up at Oasis Church, Waterloo?
Yeah, sure. Well, I usually start off with saying I was born at a very early age with more hair than I have now, but I won't start off with that. The most important things about me, I'm a father of 5 sons. I'm a granddad, or pops as they call me, to 6 grandchildren. And I'm a guy who loves Jesus, loves people, and happens to be gay and a follower of Jesus. Yeah, of course, there's much more to me than that. I have a long history, good and bad, sad and happy, but which led me to Oasis over my 40 years as a Christian. I had read The Lost Message of Jesus Christ that Steve wrote in the early noughties, and he seemed to be changing his mind about LGBT and faith. And so I visited in probably about 2009, 2010 to an evening service, and there was a young guy. In those days, you were facing each other, in the congregation. But there's a young guy there, and he won't mind me saying this, he still comes, who looked like the stereotypical gay. And there he was, hands lifted high, just worshipping. And I was nearly in tears that a gay guy could just be so free to worship. And then Steve got up and spoke, and he spoke about LGBT. And I think it was one of the first times he spoke about it. And I thought, wow. And though I'd left the church, I hadn't lost my love for Jesus just for the church. And I thought I could make a home here.
Fantastic. We're really glad that you did. So as Emily said in the introduction to this, one of the reasons that we're talking to you today is because this month is LGBT plus History Month. Dave, why is it important that we celebrate that?
There's various reasons, I think. And, gay people, as we all know, have always existed, and they always will exist. Gay people have made fantastic contributions to society, but there's a time where those people have been persecuted and discriminated against rather than celebrated for their achievement and accomplishments. What happens in History Month, it allows us to shine a light on those achievements, and because representation and visibility matters so much. And it's essential, I believe, for everyone, especially our young LGBT siblings, to see other people like themselves, that they're being celebrated, that they're doing things. And it's important to look at how far the LGBT plus community has come, but yet how far is yet to go. Full equality hasn't been reached yet, even in the UK, and especially among our trans siblings, where suicide and self-harm, they're rife because of the transphobia. So it's crucial, I believe, but especially for LGBT people of faith and allies, to raise this awareness of and combat this prejudice against the LGBT community, while celebrating at the same time its achievement, diversity, and making it much more visible.
Dave, like loads of other people, I'm sure, over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching It's a Sin on TV, which, for those who haven't seen it, it's a drama based in London in the 80s, and it tells the story of how HIV and AIDS impacted the gay community at that time. One of the things that it made me reflect on was the idea of community-wide grief. It seemed like there was a period in the late 80s in that show where all the characters in the programme were just going from funeral to funeral. And there was a real sense of struggle or of grief that kind of permeated through the whole community. It made me think about how there's a whole generation of people who identify as LGBT plus who've experienced something similar to what we're currently going through in terms of the whole community grieving together. Difficult question maybe, but was there anything that you learned through that period that could maybe help us as a community as we move beyond the difficult period that we're currently in?
It's a Sin certainly opened up many memories in the gay community, memories that people have tried to lock away as they were too painful to confront. But still, the programme has forced me and many others to face those memories. And as I was thinking about it, the title says it all. It's a sin. Christians were saying it was a judgment from God because of the sin of sodomy. The secular world was saying it was our fault. Christianity didn't have the monopoly of shaming the LGBT community at that time. We often blame things onto the Christians, but the whole of society was shaming the LGBT community, especially the gay community. And the most significant difference between COVID-19 and HIV is that no one is being blamed for COVID. Though some blame it on the gays, they still do. But what one can learn, I think, from the community, from the 80s and the 90s, is belonging, the sense of belonging. Our lesbian siblings were fantastic. They stuck by their gay men. While others allowed people to die, they bathed, they fed, they sat by the bed holding the guy's hand, whilst families and professionals just left out the gay siblings to die. And not all of them, of course. So that's what we can learn, I think, from it. We need to stick by each other to be the community of love and strength.
Amazing. Thanks, Dave. Your background talks about Oasis Open House. Can you tell me a bit about that and what's happening this week?
Yeah, it takes me back to your first question in a sense. Why did I attend Oasis? I found a home and a passion at Oasis, and my passion has always been to show people the all-inclusive love of God. And Steve asked me in 2011 to think about how we could reach out to those hurt by the church, those that may have left the church, and for those that are afraid to show themselves as a gay person of faith. So Emma Worthington, who used to come to Oasis until she moved, and myself started Dorothy's Diner. And Dorothy's Diner was a word that was used, a secret word. If you said, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" they knew that you meant, "Are you gay?" So it was one of those words. We called it Dorothy's Diner. And that grew and grew. And in 2017, we began Open House, a safe and a brave place where people can actually share their stories without any fear of rejection. People can listen to stories. People can ask questions without any fear or anything. And where people can experience the all-inclusive and embracing love of God. And this Tuesday, we're celebrating LGBT plus History Month. And it's going to be an open house in a true sense of the word, is that anybody is invited as well. Usually it's just LGBT. This time, because we're looking at the LGBT history, we want people to know more about it. Anybody's come, and they just go on to the Eventbrite, and I'm sure we can put the link down for it as well.
Yeah, the link will pop up on the screen shortly. That's all we have time for. Thanks so much, Dave. I just wanted to end by just acknowledging the incredible role that you've played in developing our work around LGBT plus inclusion over many years. There's more to do, we both know that, and I know that you'd say that there's been a lot of other people who've been around you working hard on this, but for a long time now, you've been a massive part of creating a church community which really does strive to be genuinely inclusive and open to all. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
If you would like to come along to Open House this month, please do. All are welcome. It will take place on Tuesday the 16th of February at 8 p.m, and you can sign up by going to oasiswaterloo.org/openhousefeb. Now it's time to hear our reading from Jess, and then from Rebekah, who's continuing our series, Nevertheless, She Persisted.
The reading today is from Exodus chapter 1, starting at verse 15. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, "When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him, but if he is a girl, let her live." The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do, and they let the boys live. The king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before midwives arrive." So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: "Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but you must let every girl live." Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months, but when she could hide him no longer, she got him a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. She placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother.
I wonder if you've ever gone camping, or for a walk at night somewhere remote, or even occasionally looked up on a clear night in the city and looked hard at the night sky. Every time I do this, I get this huge sense of wonder, looking at a dark sky and seeing the stars very slowly revealing themselves. Little by little, bit by bit, seeing a clearer picture. And the longer I look, the more I see. It's something that fills me with a sense of awe. And it might sound strange, but I've had a similar sense from looking at our story today and learning about the group of women I read about. The more I read and looked hard at the story, the more I realised was there. And the more inspired and in awe I felt of the women whose lives we often gloss over. Because I think we do often skim over this bit of the story of Moses, as we often refer to it. We might know he was thrown in the river in a basket, saved by the daughter of the Pharaoh. But how long have we spent looking closely at this part of the story before we rush on to the burning bush, the parting of the Red Sea, and the revelation of the 10 Commandments? I saw one description of this whole section of the story, told simply as this: Moses gets sent down the Nile as a baby, as his Levite mother couldn't take care of him. He grew up as Egyptian royalty. I hope you'll learn today that is a huge misselling of what really happened here. I think we've been so tied up in the male-dominated retellings of this story that we haven't taken the time to see the depth in this short section of the Exodus story, which, as it turns out, is crucial to the whole of the liberation of the people of God. So let's take a closer look. Our story begins in Exodus 1. We're still near the beginning of the Bible story. Joseph, of Technicolor Dreamcoat fame, and his brothers have now died, but their families continue to grow, and the people of Israel fill the land. Then a new Egyptian king comes into power, and he's unhappy with how much the Israelite population is growing, so he oppresses and enslaves them. But still, the Israelite population keeps on growing. And so with this backdrop, we arrive at our reading today. The king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, is talking with the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, telling them to kill all the baby Israelite boys. Shiphrah and Puah disobey the king's orders. They are life givers, refusing to submit to the Pharaoh and to be reduced to violence. Theologian Will Gaffney says she imagines Shiphrah and Puah going back and gathering all the other midwives after the orders from Pharaoh. Shiphrah takes her seat as Puah speaks to the midwives. Trust in God whose name is holy. This is what we shall do. Deliver the babies. Hide as many of the boys as you can. Do not worry about the Egyptians. They will not come house to check on women. And so, days, then weeks, then months go by with nothing. And then the Pharaoh does notice. And he calls the midwives back again to say, the people of Israel are still growing. You've clearly not followed my orders. So Shiphrah and Puah have to come up with another plan. And they outwit the Pharaoh. Will Gaffney says they use the Pharaoh's cultural bias against him, telling him that the Hebrew women are brutish in labour, not refined like the Egyptian women, and that the midwives simply can't get to the women in time before they give birth. Somehow, the Pharaoh leaves them to it, and they leave the second audience with the king unscathed. During this time, another woman, Jochebed, gives birth to a son and hides him away, knowing she has to protect her baby, to try and save him. She hides him away for 3 months, but knows he's grown too big to hide. So she places him in a basket in the river, in the hope that somehow he'll survive. And a girl, the sister of the boy, currently nameless, but we later know as Miriam, stood by the river, checking the baby was safe. The word in Exodus that's been translated as saying that Miriam stood actually means stationed. Miriam stationed herself to keep watch over her baby brother. And at the same time, another girl, a very different one, very different. In fact, she's the daughter of the Pharaoh, the very person who wishes the boy's death. She's down by the river, going about her everyday business and taking a bath. When she spots the basket with the baby boy, feels sorry for him and asks her maids to pick him up. She knows he's one of the Hebrew babies, and yet still feels compelled to act. And so at this moment, Miriam appears again, stationed and ready to act, ready to suggest they find someone to nurse the baby. The Pharaoh's daughter agrees, and Jochebed, the baby's own mother, is summoned to come and nurse her baby boy. The baby lives. The baby is Moses. And this incredible group of women went to huge lengths to save life when male power was telling them to end it. Without these women resisting power, there is no Moses, there is no exodus from slavery, and there is no freedom for the people of God. As Danielle said last week, we should always look for the voices from the margins that the stories in the Bible tell us. I wonder if you knew of the true significance of these women. I know I didn't until I started to look into it for this. And I think it's telling that when I began to look into who was talking about these women's stories, it was mainly womanist theologians and preachers. Black women who we have often marginalised dig in, and they see the significance and the central part that this group of women play in the liberation of the people of God. We would do well to listen to them and to act on what they have to tell us. So I wonder, what do we learn from this story that speaks to us now? I think there are lots of things I've taken from this story, and I've listened to a few really interesting and inspiring sermons and podcasts. There'll be a link available to these if any of you want to listen to them and find out a bit more about this story. I'd really recommend you do. And I think this story asks of us, as individuals, what do you see when you go down to the river? What is in your back garden or on your street? What is the injustice you see right in front of you and can no longer ignore? What's going to disrupt you going about your everyday business? And I think this story asks us as a church, what will we learn about being a collective, a group of people who together resist power and the status quo? Because when we undermine evil like Shiphrah and Puah, when we nurture with love in painful circumstances like Jochebed, when we station ourselves to protect others like Miriam, when we risk our status and reputation like the daughter of the Pharaoh, when we are willing to work together to resist power, I think we will see change, liberation and justice in the church and in the world. We learn from Shiphrah, Puah, Jochebed, Miriam, the Pharaoh's daughter and her maids, a little more of what the kingdom of God looks like. May we have the bravery to be like them.
What a group of women. May we protect like Miriam did. undermine evil like Shiphrah and Puah did, nurture like Jochebed did, risk status like the daughter of Pharaoh did. May we be brave like these women, become more like the God we follow as we learn from them. Padraig Ó Tuama's daily prayer book includes a daily prayer for courage. Let's take a moment to learn from these women this morning. Let's take a moment to pray for courage. Courage comes from the heart, and we are always welcomed by God, the Cree of all being. We bear witness to our faith, knowing that we are called to live lives of courage, love and reconciliation in the ordinary and extraordinary moments of each day. We bear witness too to our failures and our complicity in the fractures of our world. May we be courageous today. May we learn today. May we love today. Amen. So that's almost it for today. In a moment we'll finish with a song. But before we go, a couple of reminders about upcoming events. Oasis Church Bath's Community Forum is taking place at 8 p.m. on Sunday the 28th of February. Please email welcome@oasisbath.org for the link if you would like to join. And Oasis Church Waterloo's Church Forum is at 8 p.m. on Sunday the 7th of March. Please email welcome@oasiswaterloo.org for the link. We'd love to see you there. We also have some exciting plans for Lent, so do keep an eye out for the details that will follow. Have a lovely week.
Blessed are the ones who do not bury all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky of fallen stars. Blessed are the wounded ones in mourning, brave enough to show the Lord their scars. Blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him.
Blessed are the ones who walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. Blessed are the ones who fight for justice, longing for their coming day of peace. Blessed is the soul that thirsts for righteousness, welcoming the lost, the least.
The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This still have strength to love their enemies. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord.